And I started recording as soon as I saw you dropped.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a glitchy morning.
Can you record in, well, I guess you're recording to the cloud, so that would be speaker view. That's great. We'll have both copies. Hey, I've been at the Holochain hackathon all weekend. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful group of people. Yeah, it's been amazing. Like the people that are there from Vancouver, there's really interesting interconnections and interweaving between people. And of course, many of us have similar ideas and things we want to do. So I think there are some beautiful collaborations that are emerging, and some incredible minds. Wow. And hearts, of course, but like.
Yeah, could you share a little more specific? Because I've seen I finished virtually the hackathon in London and was surprised to see so many pioneers from the first hour and from the actual, the younger generation coming together. So I'm interested to hear just a little more about what you saw or witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
And can you say what a hackathon is and what is the purpose of the meeting?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So a hackathon is when people come together to build things together in like technology stuff, generally speaking. And so the Holo hackathons are to teach people how to use the Holochain to build applications. So they have the environment, which is built on the Holochain, which is different from the blockchain in some very fundamental ways, and it's modeled on nature essentially. So with the blockchain, you have to authenticate all of the information across the network, and with Holochain, each person has their own chain that they use and then update so that it's much thinner, like the problems with blockchain in terms of scaling and the power that it uses to do the work of authentication is a big problem. That Holochain has taken a different approach entirely to. And right now they're doing the initial community offering, which is raising funds to be able to build what they need to build. And what they need is they need people, app developers, to be able to build things on Holo to get it used, and to, because anything can be created on it, really. And I even built a little app. Well, I built, they have this it's called a scaffold. So rather than having to write the code, it's an interface where you can just choose what you need, and then it compiles the code for you. Kind of like how Dreamweaver would work. And so, yeah, I did a needs offers app, but many people are doing things like that and will. So we'll see if that ends up being actually used. But what was also exciting is there was a group of, just some of the folks that were there have both skills and vision. And when I talked about our little problem that we have, all of the videos and folders and files and all of what we've collected, and wanting to build something on Holo around that, yeah, there's some really beautiful humans who are willing to play in that space, and in fact are excited to have all that data to work with.
Great.
So so yeah, there's one person who has been, I gave them access to the GCC folder of videos, and they're kind of crawling it and scraping it for data, and then that will go into, you know, it's really hard to describe, but we'll be able to use the data points to create whatever rules we want to in a Holochain app. But I think it would be, obviously it would be a suite of apps actually. And yeah, so I'm excited to do a bit more of a deeper dive into that today with those folks. And yeah, I'd like to have monthly gatherings here with some Holo people as well, so that we can connect and do some work and idea exchange, but kind of keep that heartbeat of community going on. So.
Did it make your understanding of Holo and Holochain and the intention behind it clearer or not?
Yes. Yes, and I had like, there was a certain point where there's two things that were going on. There's like the information, and I'm not the most comfortable technologist. I, you know, I push into that zone, but there's a certain point where my pipe gets overloaded. So there was that, but the other thing that was happening was all of the relationships and people in the room and the brilliance, that was also kind of an internal implosion. So I just kind of felt like I got my mind blown. So in this moment, I don't feel particularly articulate, but I've definitely deepened my understanding of what's possible and seen how easy it is to actually build an app even as a non-developer. So
Harry, you said you also went to a hackathon.
No, I just visited one virtually like this one. I've done another real life hackathon, but there was one on Holochain in London, and I couldn't go there. But they had an online meeting like this one, so I got to see the people present there, and I was surprised to find some very let's say early ages dinosaurs like the guy who invented the wiki. What's his name? Cunningham. Some might probably know him. People like that, they were present there as well. Wow. Also, so the first generation and the new generation are kind of collaborating because they both understand we need to take back the internet to its original intention. And that's what my hope is.
So
well, to see what Cunningham has been indeed a privilege. I envy you, Harry.
I should now do the dog sound.
what's that?
Doug says update. That's so very Doug. Like Glenn always says, that's interesting. Secret.
You know, this is truly exciting times because ever since the beginning of the internet, it has been an asymmetrical relationship. You know, the people with the money get to push information out, and the rest of us are in a receive only. And even as early as the late 90s, many people have already started wondering what it would take to make the experience on the internet more peer-to-peer. And we kind of have almost experienced it with people in the background becoming invisible, but still controlling the power. The Holochain really gives it a true peer-to-peer nature without that very powerful intermediary in the background controlling things. So this is going to be, I think, a turning point for civilization. This is why Holochain is very, very significant in human evolution, in my opinion.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate to hear about the marketing around the blockchain that convinced everybody that that was the solution. It was still very much controlled by a central core. There's still a little bit of central core-ish in the Holochain, but at least they're much more transparent than every other project out there.
Well, as far as I can follow the intention, I love what they are trying to achieve. There's this more consciousness about it, so to speak. That's what I think I like. It's more deliberate, more deliberately trying to distribute power. Heiner, you've been circling around the centers of powers quite a bit, I think. And my take is that the power, even when people don't intend to, tends to corrupt people. And so I would like to hear your vision about dealing with that, because the Holochain is a technological tool helping to prevent that. But of course, what we need to do is kind of to be conscious about that we're playing with fire when we are collaborating, and power is always unevenly distributed. I think you've been out, but you must have great thoughts about that. So I would like to hear more from you if you have something to share.
Well, I have no words. First, 3 systems are broken and 2 internet connections, and so you even saw me topsy-turvy, but I hope I'm fine now and you can hear me clear. I'm still out of voice thinking of what we just heard about Doug, because this is so serious, and if we speak about compassion, I cannot jump on into power games of who was grabbing power and how power was grabbed in the internet or whatever. So your question, Harry, is catching me on the wrong leg. So I hope we get the powers right for Doug, that he finds us back and he somehow settles the situation. And maybe there's an insurance, I don't know the situation around there. But even when talking about panning and zooming and micro and macro and across sector, when you're stuck in the situation of survival or fire or energy or enemies, I cannot jump like you jump. Sorry.
And looping back to Anna's, Anna was asking why I didn't want to lead. I just don't know what to say, actually. It's pretty profound to lose your house and all your things. And I feel that.
Well, some people have experienced that before, so they have a special chord or a special, how do you say, resonance. So it is like emotions or energies. You can get stuck with it or in it. Maybe we can go out of it, and maybe Tommy can lead us to go back to holochains. I cannot at the moment.
Heiner, what would you like to do? How would you like to spend this time?
Silent.
What would the world look like if we live in that society that we want and someone loses a home? How would we be mutually supported? Would there even be a sense of losing a home in that society?
Well, from what Doug has posted and shared, people are responding beautifully. You know, and of course, I mean, people, I think, these are the moments when we help each other. And many people, he said, have stepped forward and you know, given clothes and, you know, helped financially, and people are happy to help.
So maybe we are living in the society we want.
Yeah. Well, I think we are, and you know, he seems to be just so positive about it, in terms of seeing it as it. Yes, it happened, but then there's next, like, and he seems to be leaning very positively into what will happen from this, and that's amazing.
I feel that he will come back stronger.
He's going to get a new computer. He's wanted one of those. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He sent a link that of a news clip on the fire,
Oh, right.
and I posted it in the chat, Anna, but I can post it to you. I
Email it to me.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also feel, you know, these are the sort of things that happen during a transition, during a revolution. You know, suddenly the leader gets assassinated or something, and I sympathize with what Heiner is feeling and where he's coming from, and particularly because he didn't know until he came online. It seemed like he hadn't got the news. So, you know, to me, it was a huge shock when I first heard. So I think we need to give people time to digest that. But I also think it's really important that we don't just crumble, and that we still manage to keep going in whatever way we feel is important.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to do my bit by having a cup of tea.
That's a very British way to respond to these sort of crises.
I'm drinking my nuts.
You're just going with the nuts?
I'm drinking my nuts. Yes, my trail mix.
Is today Earth Day, or was that yesterday?
That was yesterday. Well, I don't know how it is for you. For us, it was yesterday.
No, indeed, Earth Day is today.
Okay.
And I'm very aware of that because I'm very much feeling with all my heart for Earth Day, but I'm a follower of the original Earth Day, which is Earth Day on equinox, where all the nations and cultures and the indigenous people were having some deep roots in the nature, in spring, in the astronomic cycles. And so this Earth Day today, I love very much. I know many of people around it, but I think if we don't get back to the original Earth Day with Margaret Mead and John McConnell, we are losing out only for the benefit of certain good weather in certain regions. Excuse me, I wanted to shut up, but Earth Day is today.
Do you know why it was changed, Heine? Why was it moved?
I don't know where to start. Have you heard about Margaret Mead and John McConnell? He started with Robert Mueller, the head of the United Nations, the original Earth Day on equinox. And on the planet, there is a northern and a southern equinox, and that is always in harmony with the seasons and the stars and the traditions. And he was proposing it for, I think, all his life. But some people were taking it over. And I think for California, doing it in April and not in March 20 was better for doing barbecue. So I call it the barbecue Earth Day we are celebrating today. The spirits are right, and the traditions, and going to the roots, why Margaret Mead, Robert Mueller, and all these people made it the Earth Day in the beginning of the UN, I mean in the 60s, and how it was fought out, and the knowledge of the people from Iran, from Japan, from the northern equinox and southern equinox were all pushed apart. No, actually, I'm not in the mood to speak about this, but John McConnell, and he, influenced by Margaret Mead, was very important for me, and I have about 2 meters of documents from him in my little space.
It's interesting to feel the energy of our group and connection today.
Mhm.
It feels hitchy.
What does that mean? Hitchy?
Like, well, my experience is I don't know what to say. And then feeling into the energy of the group, it feels like it's like kind of this. Not docked.
Well, I can share that I had a very wonderful one-on-one with Andrew McDonald yesterday.
With who?
Andrew McDonald.
You're a little bit low, Sam, for me. I don't know whether you are for other people too.
Okay, let me see if I can change that.
That's what I mean about hitchy, Anna.
I wanted to say, Sam, it wasn't that bad. You know, I could sort of hear you. Don't disappear completely.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Is that any better? Is that better?
That's got
No.
feedback like crazy.
It's like you're in an airplane or something.
Yeah, the wind tunnel. Yeah, it wasn't that bad, but low. I wonder if just the internal controls would up the volume enough. Yeah.
To fill the void, have you ever heard about this Margaret Mead I mentioned?
Sure, anthropologist, yeah. What did you want to say about her, Heine?
Well, she was like Elinor Ostrom, a very special woman. Her two daughters have the family name Bateson. So out of this connection of Bateson and Margaret Mead, some very interesting women have been arising. And they have been just with us last year here in Berlin. I just felt we should look into all the old rhythms and bring them forward to the new challenges of modern times. No, I mean, I think one of these Batesons is still around in our Facebook environments here. I
That
think we should
Nora.
pick
Nora.
Nora, yes.
Yeah.
I think we should pick up on many of the things she's doing about patterns and whatever, And actually, I didn't want her to say anything.
Another example of the hitch that I was talking about.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that Nora's mother was Margaret Mead. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I didn't know that either.
No,
No.
me neither. That's beautiful.
Mm.
That's good to know.
Well, the other sister is Catherine Bateson. She's also around in this environment. She's a eldest sister. I mean, so it was another woman of Bateson. But they are both very, very interesting women. And we had around system sciences and wholeness and cybernetics, all these people here last year in Berlin. And maybe we should really look into Margaret Mead and how it was put forward through Catherine Bateson and Nora into how we address the modern challenges, not only of chains and whatever.
I quite like that slip of the tongue, holochange.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Good.
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Now I got to remember what I was going to say.
You had a one-to-one with somebody.
Ah, that's right. It was Andrew McDonald from the Enlivening Edge community.
Oh,
That was the first time he and I had a 1 hour plus conversation to meet each other. And so it was really good to meet him. I know that Tammy's done sessions with him that haven't yet heard or watched, but it was really a privilege to get his take on things and just meet him. So that was a good way to spend the Saturday afternoon.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's wonderful.
I had a connection with him because he's part of the EE group, and then he's also set up his own with Vera, his own WE gathering, WE gathering, and he's proposing to set up another group to talk about climate change. I think for 6 weeks. It's a sort of a group that will meet for a limited time. We had a slight difference of opinion, but actually it wouldn't be fair to talk about it. So.
Well, what's interesting is that we did do that piece, Anna, and I guess we could still send that to him. I gapped on that, but.
What was that piece?
Well, we did a piece talking about it.
Oh, we did. Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe you review it and see if it's something that you want to share, because there was some beautiful parts in that piece we did too.
Right. Okay. I would need to go back.
Well, and you mention probably because there's some value in it, some learning you might want to share without getting into the difference of opinion. I would be interested to hear what's important for you in this.
Yeah. Well, what was important for me was thinking about sort of prehistory and whether we see, there are a lot of archaeological there's evidence, and women have, I have read quite a few books by women talking about the fact that in prehistory there were, it was a very harmonious time when it was mainly worship of the goddess. So it was sort of before patriarchy became established. And there were hunter-gatherers, small groups of hunter-gatherers that actually lived fairly harmoniously together. So that for me is a very interesting period of history.
And one of the things that we talked about, Anna, if I recall correctly, is about when it was more of a matriarchy, that there's such a clear line of power in being able to create life that one could imagine that that power be seen as godlike. And that, I mean, just culturally, that's really deep. And I'm curious it'd be nice to time travel so we could
Yeah.
like feel what that was like, and if it was more balanced or if it was, I mean, there's pendulum swings. But
from what I've read, it wasn't matriarchy. It was that men and women were very equal, and that women also were the hunters and, you know, played an equal role in those societies. So I don't think it was seen as matriarchy, though we have matrilineal tribes actually described by Margaret Mead, I seem to remember. But that's a different thing.
Yeah.
I was reading that when the Americans came to America, that the indigenous tribes then were very much more equal, and that they were shocked that the negotiations between the indigenous tribes and the settlers, whatever you want to call them, yeah, were they were done between the men, and they didn't ask the women to join in, because the women were used to playing an equal role. And so it was very shocking to them that they were not asked to be part of those negotiations.
I think that's important, Anna, that the moment that the voice of the women got lost, both that the men didn't ask them and that the women didn't demand to be heard as well.
I think they might have asked. I don't know.
Ask,
yeah.
I said demand. It's a paramount.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the indigenous people were, yeah. Anyway, I don't know enough about it. Yeah.
Me neither, but I'm interested in what we could learn here today, because there's a disbalance these days. And people
Yes.
talk about patriarchy. And I've always been in huge support of feminism and all that, but that didn't bring me much either. So my sense is that there are still some unresolved questions behind that. That's why I was interested in to hear your voice, or the voice of a woman, so to speak.
What would you say were the unresolved questions, Harry?
I think there's still a huge disbalance in society between men and women, like unequal pay, for example. I could,
Yeah.
I think, I don't have to instruct you on that, I would guess.
No. But I think it's also that, because I've recently tried to explain or describe patriarchy to somebody, to a guy who can't see it. He thinks it's a load of bollocks, was his term.
Well, I don't know these guys, but I'm a male and I still don't understand what people talk about when they use the word patriarchy. It's such a huge label. It's a container to me. So that doesn't help me understand it better either.
Maybe
Yeah, go on, Heiner.
maybe I dare to jump in. You see, this is a very central question for me, because we have seen before the environmental drought of Arabia, these were matriarchal societies. But from what I got out of the stories, even what Muhammad was saying, and how the Arab culture was before Islam, it was a convivial society. So it was both. And when we looked into the American Indian traditions, I was told through LaDonna Harris and such heads of all North American Indian tribes that the boys, I mean the chieftains, were in the inner cycle, but the women were in the outer cycle. And they not controlled, but made sure things are coming to an end in the form of mediation, but issues are solved according to the needed timescales to be managed. So when the tribe has a problem to survive over the winter, it's important to have a strong chieftain to run the tribe, but the women make sure and they stay in the background. And so this yin-yang energies of beyond male and female, that is the main secret. And the more I looked into what you had tell me with Klaus Marker from all these people looking now into biochar and agriculture, that they have not understood that originally the women were not only looking for health and medication, but really making sure that it is in a medical harmony, and that is what this Terra Preta and biochar is about. That you make sure that the natural processes get involved. And that means another kind of settlement structure, another kind of living, and how we build towns, that we make sure that we are in the cycle of nature. And that is what is not happening, and not happening with the new towns are now built in China or in Arabia. And these women were able to step out to allow an harmony between the boys and the girls, or between the energies. I'm running out of energy, but I'm trying to solve it.
I like this a lot, Heiner. I think if men and women both keep to their own power, so to speak, and know what to bring and to take at the right moment, that would help a lot. Because I know men can be very powerful and decisive, but they also can create a lot of bullshit because of the power games and all that. And I think that would be a natural moment, because women can sense it better than we do. They say, okay, boys, this is quite enough. Now get over it and let's start acting. And I think this is kind of voice that's missing all in, well, we call it patriarchy, the business world, politics, everywhere those games are played and the women are missing. So I like very much what Heiner brought here. This is a kind of female common sense that we are missing.
I have a story. A friend of mine who lives locally here in Vancouver has a fair trade company, and he's been doing trade with folks from South America, and really helping to support co-op development down there, because that's an important piece of what fair trade looks like. And he had gone down to a particular community who had the prior year. Well, there's a crazy thing that happens with how the money works for growers, is that someone just comes and picks up the fruit. No money is exchanged. They just pick it up, and then it goes to the sorting place, and then it goes onto a container, and then it gets shipped, and then it's received, and then it's in another clearinghouse, and then it gets to the grocery store, at which point the store pays, and then the money goes back in reverse order with chunks taken at every part. So this community was growing mangoes, and the prior year the money didn't come back. I think it had actually been a couple of years that the money didn't come back. So they had some things that they were growing to be able to feed themselves, but they were basically at the end. And when when my friend met with the people, the men met, and there wasn't a lot of trust, because obviously this community had been taken advantage of, and and the men were like, you know, how do we know that you're that the money will come back? And you know, he said, you don't. You know, I could leave and get hit by a bus, and whatever we agreed wouldn't happen. And it was dicey whether or not they would come to agreement. And then he met with the women, because the men hadn't actually said what the reality on the ground was. And when he met with the women were like, look, you know, this is actually what's happened, is we are literally starving. But the men didn't want to say that, right? And so when he got the actual information of what was going on, he took the, you know, $900 or whatever was in his pocket and just gave it to them so that they could buy some things that they needed. And then they did come to agreement. And those were separate things. It wasn't a loan, it was a gift. And then they were able to, with a group of some of the other growers, have a cooperative sorting place so that that sort of thing wouldn't happen again, and they could cooperatively kind of manage the development. So it turns out, of course, that it did go as planned, and they were able to get back on their feet as a community. But there was the bravado of the men not wanting to say, and then the reality of the women saying, "This is the real thing. This is the real deal that's going on." And in the end, they had to, come to agreement, and it was a journey. But the depth of relationship that was built through, well, the selfless action of just giving a gift, and also being just really real. Like, yeah, you can't know if, something were to happen to my friend, that it might not come to pass, but that he would do his best to make sure that they were able to get paid. The other piece is that it was just a few pennies per mango, and they were able to get like 50, 75 cents a mango, which was a huge order of magnitude difference in what they were able to receive as a community for their work. So just that it's a whole thing, right? And I just want to touch on Heiner in terms of Margaret Mead, and that touches where we are here. It's the famous quote of thoughtful, committed citizens, and that it's the only thing that ever has, which I've just completely butchered the quote, but
a small group of dedicated, yeah, something like that.
Tammy, let me hug you for that, because I'm talking now since 2 years about the gift, but if I show you some volumes here on philosophical anthropology and the absence of the gift, how Polynesian cultures say we don't have the gift anymore, not the unconditional giving without expecting something back, like we have in our Germanic culture, who is in charge of giving without taking. So I think this brings me back to an old loop on what we had just had with Doug. It has to do with resilience and getting up again, and the harder they come, the harder they fall. This idea of what women experience. I had the birth experience with my wife, with 2 children. This is what a woman takes on. The challenge of giving, but maybe, as it was very common in the older days, but not making it and not surviving the labor process. So I think this very difference of allowing to give and the process of gifting in general to be explored, and not just in my silly dialogue games.
I'm not so sure you have any silly games, Heiner. I think you're dead serious.
I think this is what's been discussed here is part of the things we are learning and we need to learn, that there is a very distinct way of being that comes from men and a very distinct of acting that comes from women, that we need to recognize and honor and give its proper place in the way we interact as humans, and not trying to be equal in that sense, because it's a huge mistake I've practiced for years. It doesn't work like that. And I very much like the example you gave, Tammy, that is the women that focus on the relationship and the connection, and are not don't harness this pride in order to keep up appearances, because as man you must be able to, you have to show your strengths and hide your weaknesses, and it's an instinct that kind of is counterproductive in dire situations like that. And I just watched some half a minute of the burning down of Doug's house, him losing all his material goods, and that kind of connects in my mind to the struggle I have personally with being some kind of patron to Nene Sambu, who really has nothing, and I stopped giving him his money in spite of, because everybody around me said, Harry, you're just pouring it into an empty hole and it doesn't really work. So then I say, okay, I will stop giving you money. You try to find somewhere else and find your strength and all that. And so he was sick last days. He has no money. He has no food. He went into the woods and he climbed a tree because he found the last piece of dry wood in the forest and tried to kind of hack it down with a knife. And of course he fell. And yeah, then I say, okay, and then now we all kind of touched by the fact that somebody we know personally, like Doug lost his stuff, but some people around us are dying like flies, and it doesn't even influence my sleep. And so the way we go about doing that is still something I struggle with quite a bit, because Doug is the one who always says, well, either we sort of all make it or nobody of us makes it. So it's kind of the spectrum between the very poor and the very rich, and the very powerful and the powerless, and the so-called victims, and men and women, and well, all those dimensions Heinrich is very good at addressing. But he will be silent, so I don't want to hear anything from him.
I just had the idea, maybe we share stories of when we lost everything, and well, even worse than losing all the material, where we have been physically, spiritually really at the edge, because I think this is a power of survival, to show you can survive. And maybe that's a nice story for Doug, to tell him other people have lost everything their own, I mean physical, like house or property or whatever, that people in traditions have been more used to this challenge. Or women giving birth are at the edge of losing everything because they give birth and have labor. That we are getting more existential in sharing these untold stories. Maybe, as we don't know each other physically, maybe you should share such stories of highest, how do you say, desperation.
This makes me think there's a beautiful sketch by Monty Python about it. But I won't go there. But I can keep it short, my misery short and sweet. I lost my first marriage, and now I lost my second, and I might be losing her because she has cancer. I lost my sister to cancer, and I lost my faith in God. It was quite so my compass in life, I lost it as well. But other than that, I'm good. And you want details, I can tell him, but I don't know if it helps. And I like very much what Doug learned me. You have to come from a place of unconditional love. That means there's no conditions there. You're just who you are, and you have to live with that. And of course, we can die any minute. That's a heart attack and a blood clot, and I'm done. I know. And I'm grateful for every day I am alive. And I'm wondering about, is there any purpose, or is it just something that happens to me? But I'm very interested to hear your life stories. Why don't you take it away, Heiner? Because it's such a good example. Tell me your misery.
Another time. Time is running out, but we can create new times.
Hmm.
I'll share another short and sweet story. In many ways, I could look at my move from California to Washington as a loss, because much of the reason I had to move is because I couldn't afford to live in California anymore because of my divorce. And my ex-wife insisted on selling the house. I tried to keep it and say, you know, the rent on that house would have more than paid for our expenses. But no, she insisted on selling. So now, instead of owning a fairly nice asset and splitting the income, we had to sell it. And now it's probably not stretching the truth for me to say I'm actually trying to figure out from month to month, you know, how much runway I've got. So usually I have about 1 or 2 months runway. This month I'm going to get much, much closer than that. Hopefully it'll still be okay. But that's on a financial basis. On a purely human basis, I'm 1,000 times happier here in Washington than I ever was in California. I don't have to, I mean, basically, I no longer have to share a life, a family, a home with my ex-wife. That was very dysfunctional. I take half the blame, 100% of the blame. But I don't have to deal with that anymore. And I very much enjoy where I'm living now, even though from month to month, it's always a question whether I can make it work. So you can look at it financially as a disaster, but from a life standpoint, I would do it 1,000 times out of 1,000 over.
I recognize that, Sam. It was and at the same moment, I might go back if she said come back.
What was the last thing you said, Harry?
Yeah.
If my ex would say, please come back, I might go back. Back. English is not my language. I'm sorry.
Is there still some hope that she might ask you to come back?
That's no, and that's rather irrelevant. The fact that I know that that where my desires are and what I'm hoping for and all that, and that's I'm kind of vulnerable in that sense. We all want to be loved and taken care of, and we always find people who touches those most vulnerable, those oldest desires to be nurtured and loved and cared for. And there are certain people who are, because who they are, awaken those desires. And she was one of them. And I think this is not just my personal thing. This happens to everybody in a certain way, I would guess. Or maybe you don't have that problem. That could be. I would like to hear from you guys about this.
Well, I would say for me, and probably for most people, it's a desire that stays with you throughout your life. Wanting a mate, wanting somebody who really cares for you. I also see, I think that is partly the way that our society is organized. It's organized around couples. And if you are in a couple, it's much easier to function. There is it's not a stigma anymore, but it's, you know, we have an image of happiness, which is two people together and having a good time. And being on your own isn't an image of happiness. So it's very difficult to feel like you can create a happy life when you're on your own. I mean, on your own already has that sort of feeling about it, of somehow being deprived. So I don't know how much this is, you know, fostered by our social mores and the media and everything which supports couples, and how much, if we had a different type of society where everybody was somehow equally entitled to support and you know, so whether you lived in groups or whether you lived on your own, really there wasn't any essential difference, or whether you were in a couple, you know.
In my mind, that is exactly the kind of society we are developing here.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, because I spent a lot of time trying to understand my mistakes in my life, and what I did learn from that is not every stupidity was invented by me. That there's just like it's only few centuries actually looking at humanity that the so-called nuclear family is an ideal. It's a fairy tale invented like not over 2 centuries ago. Before that, it was different, and then the rich people could afford to have just their own family because they don't care about anybody else, and have people, slaves and all supporting them. But before that, and you kind of refer to that as well, you had this more tribal and groups and small villages, and those were kind of they didn't function like that. And there are still stories of people who have grown up in a kind of society that they hardly knew who their mother or their father was, because they were always about all and about everywhere, and they slept with the friends where they played with, and then sometimes they went home, but it was kind of in a safe village. And if it needs a village to raise a child, and that's a natural way to do, but also it needs a village to be happy as an adult. So my sense is that if we weren't also focused on finding the one and only, which is basically that's a fairy tale, because not to Tammy. She has 5. Okay. Enlighten us, Tammy.
Well, no, this was like, that doesn't exist. You know, I was agreeing with you. And yeah, I have a different way of being in relationship in that way. And, you know, I was just kind of reflecting on how early that really was in my life. And I feel like because my family split up, and from 13, I didn't live with my mom. And then from 7 to 13, not with the dad. So I think I always looked for family in my circles. And so, you know, when I was 15, 16, I moved out of my own and moved in with another family, and they're still to this day family. And in terms of relationship, from when I was about 14 till I was 28, I was a serial monogamist. So I was, generally speaking, in relationship with someone with not a lot of time in between. And then I had a shift, and a really profound connection with one of my partners, that made me realize how powerful intimacy is. Like I actually traveled the universe, and my mind was blown, because I was like, whoa. Now this was in the soul emergence part of my story, but it actually kind of shut, because I can see actually and feel what happens in intimacy. It's huge, you know, like the mixing of DNA, like what happens at the soul level. So I'm, you know, I haven't really been willing to enter into that kind of connection because it's so profound. And rather than that, I kind of have my network of people who I love, and that's been like a long time now. It's been, you know, 17, 18 years since I had this shift of feeling a different way of, it's just a different way of being in terms of the one. Like there's never going to be the one. There's like and to have that pressure of having one person hold all of the different places in me, it's just not possible. So, you know, living here at the Artery, and I have many really deep relationships that I nurture and nourish, and that, you know, fulfill a lot of needs across the network. You know, it's like, so, and here, like, you know, how much I love you guys. Like this is another part. It's like I experience love in this place, with each of you in different ways, where and it is really powerful. And so I'm definitely outside the traditional way of being in terms of love and relationships. And I feel that I'm learning something really deep in that. And I don't know, I have my own pieces of healing in terms of having a intimate relationship as well. But the love that I experience and receive is really powerful and profound in my life. And it's not just from one person. And I think it feels resilient. It feels like, yeah, and I guess there's also a part of me that I feel like in this lifetime, one of my pieces to be is to love whoever's in front of me. And I really feel that. It's not something, I'm not trying to sound good. It's like, actually, you know, last night traveling home, there was we were traveling through the downtown east side, which is, you know, a lot of folks that are struggling with addictions. And I had a really deep and long conversation. I was with someone, but we ended up having this conversation with this person, and just that meeting of humanity to humanity, regardless of the appearance or any of that, is for me deeply touching and feels like it's closing a loop that needs to be there. And regardless of the effect, I think it says something to the field that everyone is worth love.
Yeah. Every encounter is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
I think I started off in the sort of traditional, you know, I don't think I questioned it that much. I mean, it was a long time ago. And the man that I married, we were together as boy and girlfriend when I was 15. And then we sort of, well, he did national service, went to Singapore, and we sort of went our separate ways a bit. And then when he came back, we got together again. And it was just somehow unquestioned, you know, he was just totally, yeah, this is the guy that I'm going to marry and have kids with. And it was only, I mean, we were married 10 years. It wasn't a long time, but it was, I grew enough in that time to begin to question being with one person. I think what you're talking about, Tammy, is so much this new paradigm of really loving everybody and finding love in front of you. But my husband, I shouldn't talk about him, should I? He wanted a little wifey at home, and I couldn't be that. So.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even imagine that for 1 minute.
You failed.
I did, totally. But I produced 3 lovely children who are still lovely. One of them is Daniel, you may know, and you know, my daughter Ella, and the oldest son, Joel, who is an architect in Germany and has 2 children. And yeah, they're all beautiful children. But I've changed, and they had to go through quite a bit because we grew. Both of us grew in different ways. And that was sort of hard on the kids, but you know, I think it helped them to grow too. It wasn't just a straightforward, conventional marriage.
And maybe the marriage didn't work out, but you worked out.
Yeah, I mean, worked out in the sense that I am still very, my ex-husband has remarried and has 3 more children, actually 4 more children, and we all get together in summer, or actually it was my oldest son's 50th birthday a few years ago, and we all met in Majorca. I think there were 15 or 16 of us, and then last year it was my ex-husband's 80th birthday, and we all met in Crete, and there were 23 of us because it's sort of growing a bit. But yeah, we all still love each other. Actually, it's a huge family. Yeah, it's been okay.
I feel humiliated and at awe how much you deeply care about yourself. I wouldn't do that about myself. But at least I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren, and I've seen much ups and downs globally, internationally, socially, with elbows, wherever. So I feel the compassion I always heard in the words of Tammy, and I wonder if we can really share these personal things in such an environment, like in face-to-face encounters. But now doing it in a virtual environment, it's really a challenge for me. I can only tell you that you can stand up again. And when you're really high to power or energy or monies or whatever, then there always was this war, like bees. But this bees with a stinger, they go to the ripe bananas as a or whatever the Chinese say. When it is hot, you have all these people grabbing at you. And having experienced that, I think I found my little solitary environment to survive and to be out in the green and the garden, and having two beautiful grandsons. I'll share pictures maybe one day. Anyway, what the future will bring, we cannot know. So it is like the midwifery. Allow the potential to give birth to something new.
I'm sorry to hear that, Heiner.
What do you mean, Harry?
Well, the feeling I get it is kind of an unsafe world, and you cannot share. Sharing who you are is kind of dangerous or undesirable or something like that. And I don't mean in any way to kind of challenge you to say any more than you like, Heiner, but still it feels like when you're out there and things are going well in your outworld and you're like a ripe banana surrounded by flies or what, and then the only way to get rest is to be on your own in your solitude, is there's a kind of a sad image to me. That's what I want to share. I wish you more friends, real friends.
I do think this idea that solitude, you know, it's what I was talking about before. I don't think it needs to be sad.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
No.
It's just a feeling I got. I don't know anything factual about Heine's situation. It's just a feeling that came to me as a result of what he's saying.
Well, the way I see it, you know, when you've been a somebody out in the world with all the, you know, energy, a big shot in some way, you don't actually have time to really appreciate life.
It's true.
And then being able, because it does usually happen towards the end of your life, or actually when you get older, just to feel the real connection to the earth, you know, to life. It's wonderful. So that's what I heard from Heiner.
What I perceive is, of course, going through my filter.
And also wanting to keep some things private. It doesn't really mean necessarily that that the world is a dangerous place, but just some things are private. That's okay.
Yes. Could you say a little more about that difference, that distinction you seem to be making?
Well, I think it's a very personal thing. Sometimes we're okay to share. I'm sure that there are things that I wouldn't want to share that are very private. And I'm not going to tell you what they are.
No, but I'm kind of, there's a meme becoming stronger on the internet that's radical transparency. And there's a lot of fear surrounding privacy at this moment because, oh, people know everything about me. So I've kind of been wondering myself, what's the fear about? And what should I protect from you? What harm would come to me if, like, for instance, you, Anna, would ever know everything about me? You quite could have very evil intentions and trying to abuse whatever you know about me. But I can either not, and I'm not a stupid person, but I don't know what you could do with knowing everything about me. What could you know? How many times I fart, or what would you want to abuse? I don't know. So I've been thinking about it. It's only people who are already afraid that they have something that could be taken away by others. Well, if people want to harm me, they always can. The people in power, they can obliterate me in a few seconds. They have these nice drones and stuff, and those chemicals and all that, and you die as a fly. So that, no need for me to worry about that. And then, so other than those very private stuff, what could be private? And please don't give me examples, but I don't know. I just don't know what should be private. Honestly, okay, my bank account, my PIN, and so some practical things. But other than that, I just do not know. I've been practicing sharing more and more, and never only good things came out of it. So that's my personal test. I'm my own guinea pig in here. I'm not trying to convince anybody else, but I don't see the use. Privacy is false. According to me, it's just bullshit. That's my opinion.
Awesome. Radical transparency. Yeah, I'd love to hear some of Sam's thoughts because we're kind of in the same school in many ways. But, well, it's interesting because, for example, I think that through radical transparency, we can really truly see ourselves. And for me, it also points me in the direction of what am I going to choose to say? And I think that's an important thing to consider as well. And I err on the side of the overshare, definitely. But I think that that's because I feel like the realness is what's missing in the world. And I also noticed that the pieces that Harry and I have been creating, I haven't posted those yet. In part, it's because I haven't reviewed them all. I haven't reviewed all of the first one, which is part of what's stopping me, because I want to know, did I say anything about my family that that they would be hurt by? And, there is a moment in there where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure that one of my family members that I talked about, if they would appreciate being talked about in that way. So there's that piece. So how we talk about each other is important. And I think that these authentic spaces require a lot of discernment in terms of what we do choose to share. And at the same time, I think that radical transparency is a powerful tool, and what does need to be private. I feel, there are some things where I definitely think they should be private. But I'm also interested, motivated to push into those places of the things we don't really talk about. So Heiner, I was talking about, my relationship with intimacy, and, that's maybe where you were talking, that's beyond what you would share. And at the same time, I feel like there's a radical trust in just trusting that who I am is, that I can just present that and not try and make it be something else. And that honesty helps to repair and heal the field and myself at the same time.
I think it's also a generational thing, that the younger generation is more used to being open, particularly about intimate relationships.
And sexuality and gender and all of these things
Sure.
really, they're really moving in that field. Sam?
Yes.
I have to admit, I've been in and out because I've been dealing with a personal issue this morning. And if we're going to be radically honest, it's not been very pleasant. So I apologize for being detached and not present. But I just caught Gail sneaking alcohol again. And some of you may not think that's a big deal or what it really means, but it's a violation of our agreement. It's a violation of trust. So I'm sorry
Is
for
Gail
being...
your daughter?
No, Gail is my girlfriend.
Oh.
Yeah. And, you know, alcohol with some of the medications she's taking is a very bad combination. And it's happened before. And this morning I thought things were going well, but now I just find that she went and got some alcohol. So the other reason is, you should probably know, one of the reasons, probably 85% of the reason I divorced my ex-wife is because she was an alcoholic.
Wow.
So sorry about being detached.
Thank you for
Well,
sharing.
thank you for sharing. Yeah.
This is exactly a great illustration of life is happening. We are trying to be who we are. And if we can't bring that, then we will not receive the wholeness we are striving for. So I honor you for that, Sam. Thank you.
And it makes me hate myself because I lose my temper and I turn into somebody I don't like.
Also, it wouldn't be complete without your dark side, Sam. And honor the power in that as well. Maybe you should be angry.
So sorry for the downer.
Well, I'm noticing that downers are kind of presenting themselves in our field here. We can be hopeful and we can talk about what we would like life to be and the great future and the great conversation yesterday. I saw the recording and then Glenn happily talking about being us in superposition on time. But now I kind of dragged down into reality. This is what we need to kind of figure out, I think. We can talk about the plane flying, but this is a plane grounded. Okay. Welcome to the present.
What a gift.
So I don't need to wrap anything about it. It's the raw present, the present unpacked that we need to handle, I would guess.
Is there some way that we can support you, Sam, in what you're feeling?
If I think of one, I'll suggest it, but thank you so much for asking it. I guess one way would be help me understand why I keep giving second chances to people who break promises.
This is about you, Sam.
You're muted.
Why do I give people second chances? We didn't hear you anymore.
Oh, I said something like, why do I give so many second chances to people who break promises and break agreements?
Well, what's your need? What need does it serve to kind of keep coming back to people who basically crossed your boundaries in this?
The need to feel generous, the need to feel that I'm helping, the need to feel that I'm giving someone a lifeline where they otherwise would not have one.
Your voice is going away again, but I heard the first part. Then probably you might be kind of demonstrating the kind of behavior you would like. Maybe it's a mirror.
It feels generous, but it also feels stupid, you know? That so many agreements can be broken, and yet I'm trying to figure out whether to help someone.
It sounds like you're not really listening to your own needs, that you're wanting to be generous and provide for somebody else.
I'm trying to be macho. I'm trying to be strong enough to do it.
That's an image. You're living up to an image. Be yourself. That's only basically I failed at all the other things.
You know, to refuse and to cut off the help feels selfish.
It is, and it should be.
That is listening to your needs.
Yes.
And then I ask myself, is that the kind of behavior I want in this new society that I want to help you guys create? I don't think turning back is part of that behavior. I could be wrong. So I'm not turning my back, and yet it's so frustrating to put up with it time after time.
Okay, I can only put my own story next to it, Sam. You're talking, and then apparently the internet allows you just one sentence at a time. But let me put my story. If you
The
can
Twitter net. Sorry.
We should build that on the Holochain. It's great, the Twitternet. I love it. But coming back to your pain, so to speak, from I kind of had to become selfish in order to save my life. I was kind of sacrificing myself to my marriage and the illness of my wife and her endless needs, and she kind of relied on that, and I had to be selfish in order to be Harry again. And I think, and now I understand here that only by being myself complete, I can be of value to anything. First of all, I have to be of value to myself. And only if there's more, then I can share. But don't sacrifice yourself to some ideal of generosity or something. I don't think that would be right. That's my perception. But I see I'm in the middle of Anna and Tammy, and I see the nodding beside me, so I might have a point here.
You know, if everybody had 150 friends like you and Tammy and Anna and Heiner, then me reaching my limits would not feel quite so final.
Yes.
But some people don't have 150 such strong connections.
Yes. Well, it's another story I have to put next to it. I'm still struggling with helping Nene Sambu. And he only comes to me because he's the only one I trust. And I tell him, bring it to Facebook and make more friends. Make 150 friends, so then it's easy to help you. And like, I think Doug, his house burned down, but there are many people around him who appreciate him for who he are. He probably has more than 150 friends. And then it's easy to help each other. But some people are, and when you were away, we're discussing relationships, and we've all been trained to have to live with one special person and forget about the rest of the world. But that's kind of a collective mistake we've been making. So in my new future, we all will have 150 people around us, maybe not all friends, but like the whole village around it, that kind of supports us when somebody, his house burns down, or he falls out of a tree, or he or she starts drinking when that person shouldn't be drinking. Everybody around there, and we say, okay, this is not good. Something needs to be done. And Doug very elaborately spoke about this being an essential part of the new reality. If we're not all on board, then the ship just doesn't leave, because what happens to a person and some person gets into trouble, it should be our problem and not the problem of that person on its own.
Part of the pain that Gail is dealing with has to do with a lot of early abuse, which created deep, deep distrust. So making friends is very difficult for her.
Yes. And you are trying to save her.
I know I can't do it on my own. I know I don't like using the word save, but I know that she has very few connections.
Well, you're kind of describing my relationship I just broke. That's why I can feel that. It was very easy that I did everything in the end. For her, it was easy. It killed me. I thought it was masculine, strong, loyal. Well, all of those great ideals, I was honoring them. I still honor them. But in the end, I was just kind of giving myself away with no boundaries, no limits. So my last birthday, over a year ago, when I became 64, there's this song where "Will you still need me when I'm 64?" So it was kind of, now this will be the proof that we still have a value in our relationship. And I said to her, I want to do my birthday. I know you're very weak, but I need you beside me as my companion. And then we kind of do it together, and we are together. Well, she didn't do it. She just in the end, I just did, like always, I did everything on my own. And she was there like, okay, I'm the victim of the situation. And my brother is the same pattern. He's built to a woman with MS. So she can't even move a limb anymore because she has MS. And I feel a lot of anger about that. The kind of unconscious, because there's no harm meant there. The intentions are okay. But there's an unconscious abuse of the goodwill of people like us. It's hard to defend against yourself against that, because if somebody falls down, okay, then somebody has an accident, you stop and you help. But I kind of gave away most parts of my life helping people. That was very convenient for those people. Did it help them? You might wonder.
There's a quote from Mother Teresa, I don't even know if it's a true quote, that said something like, you give until it hurts, you love until it hurts, and then you love some more, and then there's no more pain, there's just love. And I've been trying to do that and haven't found that point yet.
Well, there's stories coming out about Mother Teresa that are not that pretty. I still like the way of the radical honesty and the radical transparency, and see what it brings. It might kill me, well, then I know at least what the cause of my death is.
It's not exactly on point, but I've been really thinking of Leela Watson's quote, "If you've come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together." And I've been really thinking about that, both from the perspective of helping and being helped. And there's a real difference. There's a real difference in what that is. So, you know, I wonder, Sam, if you can reconsider, like, are you helping her, or is what you want together something that can be understood, so that you can be looking in the same direction together rather than helping? Because I don't think helping helps, actually.
Yeah, I would say we have been trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that I think it's one of the most difficult things in our society to accept that we have needs and not to call them selfish. Just to appreciate who we are and that we have needs.
Spot on, Anna. Thank you. Yeah. Expressing needs is kind of a vulnerable thing, and it's not, yeah, it's not appreciated. And it's so extremely necessary.
And I have been with each of you very intimate. Like each of you have had very deep conversations, and I really experience love with each of you differently. I remember Anna, in the conversation that we had where we were talking about Andrew, there was a moment in that conversation where you kind of
No, she's frozen.
On the very moment, like it's a clip. It was a natural clip into this one.
You're back.
amazing. There was a moment in that conversation where you just said that you loved me. And it was how you said it. It was just this really beautiful moment of, and really feeling how much we do love each other and how much you love me, and being able to like really receive that. And I just think that together, right? It's this love together and having those deep connections that it really does feel like it's transforming from the inside. And the village that Harry was talking about, and it's profound, you know. It's like the deep sharing. Harry, you know, the way your hairiness allows me to show up in a way that I can't with anyone else, really. Like I've noticed this. You're calling me to be truly authentic and to really, because otherwise I can feel your energy, it doesn't receive. So you're kind of training me to be more honest in a because I have every intention of, but I have my lies that I tell myself. But in your presence, I get a different way of being inside myself to be more what I'm wanting to be. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great compliment. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I can be that for somebody, that's a huge compliment. Yes. We all so long to be who we want to be. And it's so difficult. And there are all these training we have as children to be like this or to be, and then there's this part we want to grow up and then cut it off. And I've always liked this plant in a pot, and they say, oh, this has to be like this bonsai tree. That's how we cut off this one. Oh, this is not like it. So, and they say, yeah, Harry, you came out beautifully, and I'm like this. And then I need all my life to kind of grow this limp back because they cut it off because it just didn't fit in the matrix. And we all have that. And indeed, as Anna says, the earlier generations, they are kind of always kind of weeded back to kind of, right or above the ground, just a little bit above the ground. Don't rise up to your greatness. Please don't. Please don't. Because then also I need to acknowledge that I didn't do it. So people are just kind of constrained in those little boxes they call the family home, or I got this nice cottage, or I live in this neat apartment, and they die of loneliness. Like, those plants that are kind of not nourished, and we could be such a nice ecosystem together, and it's so stupid. It's such a waste of lives and energy. And then and then to notice that we are on the best part of the world, the most developed countries, and the richest and the wealthiest, and all the people in China are working their ass off to give me my new gadget, whatever it is. Okay, that's enough. Starting to rant here.
Yeah. Anyway, it's deep. It's deep. And we're reconfiguring.
Yeah.
I do hope we are kind of practicing and becoming aware of that there are certain patterns that we are different in these kind of conversations should be kind of the new algorithms, as they could call them these days, towards a new society then. And I think, and of course this is my stance, that being who you are is basically what you need to practice, and finding out who you are is for some people even a struggle, and mine also. And then can bring that to the world. So saying that, I think being honest to yourself who you are and not holding back in expressing this, because somebody else might find it difficult or unpleasant that you are kind of demonstrating kind of behavior that's not appropriate. Okay. I failed at that, and I lost quite a few interesting contacts, and it's sorry that Heiner has kind of dropped off because he's been in those worlds of power as well, and then people all keep up. There's this English series, isn't there? And keeping up appearances and all that. So tiring.
And Anna, in her life, has really demonstrated that different way too, right? Like, not the little wifey, not at all. And it's beautiful. You teach me so much, Anna.
The feeling's mutual. But actually, I was just loving listening to Harry. When, a few months ago, Harry, you were completely different. You've really grown and changed.
Could you tell me more about it? What did you notice? I cannot see myself from the outside.
You're not scared to say who you are. You're just being who you are, and it's beautiful. It's really lovely to listen to that.
Thank you. Well, coming back to the earlier conversation about privacy, I was very much also held back because I was in this marriage, and I did not want to kind of complain about it because I was kind of giving away things about somebody else. It was not my choice, or it was not up to me to share. So now I don't have to take care of anybody, and that makes it a lot easier for me. And I took a few, this winter was basically for me to rest and to heal. And now the spring is coming, and I got a I know that I will be able to live in a house, so I'm far more relaxed than I was before. I think that's the main difference.
Mm.
I didn't think I grew that much. But you call it, I'm happy if you call it growth. It's good to hear.
Well, to me, it looked like growth because
Yeah,
that
I show
wasn't
more
really
of
what
myself. I know that. I don't need to hold
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And I have more energy than like a few months ago. That's true enough. I was kind of extremely tired and sad. And that's kind of moving away now. That helps.
I need to go, and I just want to express my gratitude again for such a beautiful session and being with you guys. It's really all of you. Even the down stuff, Sam, because it's being honest, it really feels rich and lovely. Yeah. So thank you. Till the next time.
Thank you, Anna.
And then there were 4. Yeah. Tammy, me, and Double Sam. Well, for me, it also might be a good moment to stop at 7 o'clock here, and I still need to eat and cook and all that, because I'm a man all alone. Nobody to cook for me.
Oh,
No wifey.
oh, honey.
Oh. Yeah, well, stuff like that.
Thank you for today.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
All right.
And take care of yourself first, Sam.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Anna.
You sound like Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And a moment of silence again for Doug.
All right. I wouldn't mind having a check-in, but if you have time.
Okay, let me check and see what's going on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Sam.
See you, Tammy.